When tracing the path of food through the body, one of the very last places we come to is the large intestine. And that's what we'll discuss in this video. When food enters the large intestine, it first enters the cecum. Hanging off the cecum is the veriform appendix, or just appendix, but food doesn't typically go in there. From the cecum, the food will enter the colon, and the colon has 4 parts to it: the ascending colon, the transverse colon, the descending colon, and the sigmoidal colon. From there, food will enter into the rectum and then anal canal before defecation occurs. So what are the functions of the large intestine? The large intestine does absorb some water and some nutrients, but it does not do a lot of absorption, with the exception of water. The large intestine is preparing the residues of digestion for defecation. And of course, the large intestine is involved in the process of defecation. One thing I want to talk about, though, is the bacteria in the large intestine. So we have a multitude of bacteria and other organisms besides bacteria that live in the large intestine. And this microbiome, this group of organisms living there, are really important for our health. One example is with vitamin K. It turns out that the majority of the vitamin K that we absorb through the large intestine, and we do that because the bacteria in the large intestine are actually producing vitamin K as a waste product. When that microbiome is destroyed, which can happen, for example, if you're on antibiotics for an extended period of time, those antibiotics are going to help you fight infection, but they're also going to kill your natural bacteria. And if we lose that microbiome in our large intestine, what happens is it creates an empty space, a void, where bad bacteria can grow, and that can make us very sick. And this is often what happens when someone ends up with C. diff. So C. diff is actually a type of bacteria that can colonate the colon after a long extended period of antibiotics, and can make people really sick. Actually, and it's treated with a poop transplant sometimes, so that is a thing. Something else that's really interesting that we don't know a lot about with regards to the large intestine is the fact that this microbiome in there is actually communicating with our nervous system. So what I'm saying is that the bacteria that live in your colon are actually communicating with your brain, and likewise, your brain is actually communicating with this microbiome. And I know that sounds crazy, but there's a lot of research that shows it's true. This is part of the gut-brain connection. As I said, there's still a lot of research going on with this, but what we do know is that when our microbiome in our large intestine gets messed up, it can actually have effects on our mental health. And likewise, actually, our mental health can have effects on our microbiome. So I think in the upcoming years, we're going to see a lot more research in this area. The other thing that I want to look at in more detail with regards to the large intestine is the process of defecation. The filling of the stomach and the duodenum is what is actually going to begin to stimulate the reflexes that increase motility in the colon. So basically, once food comes into the stomach and the small intestine, we're like getting the colon ready for receiving the undigested matter. The increased motility in the colon is going to help the feces to enter the rectum. And this, of course, is a form of peristalsis. The stretching of the rectum is going to stimulate stretch receptors, which are a type of mechanoreceptor that are located in the wall of the rectum. There's a reflex here that gets activated. The stretch receptors send a signal to the spinal cord, and then the motor neurons that are located in the spinal cord will send a signal out to the internal anal sphincter, causing it to relax. Do you think that this internal anal sphincter is voluntary or involuntary? So it's a reflex. In this case, it's definitely involuntary. But defecation has not occurred yet. Defecation occurs when the external anal sphincter is relaxed. That one is voluntary. So this is the one that little kids have to learn to control in order for them to be potty trained. If defecation is delayed for an extended period of time, additional water can be absorbed from the feces, making them firmer and drier and potentially leading to constipation because it's hard to pass dry feces. If the waste moves too quickly through the intestines, not enough water gets absorbed, and that can result in diarrhea.